Okay, you're a minute here. Let me finish this 20-minute speech. It's an honor today to be here to share my story as a caregiver. I've been mentally working on this speech since 2013, so you're in for a real good ride. I've revised it a lot of times. My first draft was really my story of being a caregiver and all the trials and tribulations of that role. But I decided that writing that story was more about therapy for me, and it wasn't really the story that I wanted to share to inspire you today. So the next draft turned into something that was going to be more inspirational, so hold on to your seats. I kept looking for inspiration as I kept writing, and through those developments of my drafts, I found inspiration in my hands. So this is a story about the hands of a caregiver. Billy Graham said, God has given us two hands, one to receive with, and the other to give with. Legends talk about the power of our hands in healing. My first role as a caregiver was for my mother when she was fighting thyroid cancer just after I graduated college. I was living away from home, so my role was from more of a distance. I supported her over the phone and was also there for my dad as he took care of her. When I visited home, my hands scratched her back, something I'd been doing since childhood. They held her hands for comfort when accompanying her to the doctor's appointments. And the hands rested on the top of my father's hands as he raised his hands in helplessness some days. Has anyone been there? Raise your hand. Several years later, when my mother was later diagnosed with lung cancer, my hands helped count her pills when she could no longer do it. The very touch of my hands on her skin was soothing for both her and me. Though there were times when even the lightest touch seemed to bring tingles of pain, sometimes just that touch to stay connected when there was no other means of communication was enough. My hands were capable of bathing her and taking care of her physical needs in a way that I'd never planned or thought possible. But my hands were an extension of my heart, and each touch was one of love. As a caregiver for my mom, my hands helped to ensure her comfort until she passed. And I still remember after her last breath how I was able to pass my hands over her one last time and hold my father's hands as he wept for the loss of his wife of nearly 30 years. Now, I'm very fortunate. I have another special family member in my life. I'm an adoptee, and I know and have a relationship with my birth mother. Sure enough, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to undergo a mastectomy. So I traveled to Kansas City to be on hand to help her. I was a caregiver from afar once again, and it was so difficult. How many of you have been the caregivers and supporters of loved ones from afar? When I got there, I was able to do things like help around the house, and I felt much more useful and needed when I put my hands to work. When giving care to others, hello? There we go. When giving care to others, we are also filling our own cup as well. Wave your hands if you felt the caregiver will complete you and fill you at the same time. When my best friend's mom, another strong mother figure in my life, developed breast cancer, I used my hands to raise a glass to create a sense of normalcy. Having a drink with the gang is what we always did. Changing that due to her cancer was not a change she wanted to make. So we had a drink and talked it through. We hugged, and when she was proclaimed cancer-free, we raised that glass one more time. Let's raise our hands in a quick cheer to those survivors who inspire us. My father was one of the strongest, smartest men I knew. He was a hard worker, but he had very rough hands. And we went to the doctor visits, and he reached out to hold my hands. I knew he needed me there to comfort him. His lung cancer diagnosis came just months after pain and misdiagnosis, and only 6 weeks before he passed away. During that time, there was a need for many hands. My dad was a very private man, and he often rebuffed visitors. However, those who were able to get through his steely gate truly touched him. They knew that they were special to him, and the hugs, touches, handshakes, and general greeting and conversations that were normal made him still feel a part of the outside world when he was confined to his home. There were even times when, as any father would do, that he took my hands and tried to comfort me through the progression of his disease. My dad had to stop working suddenly due to pain, But before his diagnosis, and while he was off work, his coworkers sent him cards and a picture with their pinkies raised. I asked him, what's the deal? What's the story behind this one-handed pinky salute? Be careful here. He says he gives the pinky because they're not good enough for the middle finger. Now that's one hand signal I'll never forget. In honor of my father, Dietmar Buchholz, and with Father's Day being tomorrow, could you all please just give a pinky salute? Thank you. There are many hands that don't get enough credit. The hands of those who support the caretakers. I never like asking for help, and I've always been in control. However, during this time, I had to ask for help because it wasn't about helping me. It was about helping my dad. So when someone cooked a meal, or brought desserts that my dad loved, or ran an emergency errand for me that allowed me to stay with him, it provided immeasurable support. I was awed by how many people I could ask for help and how many people I could depend on. Sometimes I didn't even have to ask. Please know that if you help care for someone who's serving as a caretaker, your role is so important, and you truly also deserve a round of applause. Please. I learned the power of touch with my dad. Touch was a way to stay connected. There were times when I was literally supporting him by helping him walk around the house and see things for the last time. And there were times when I was touching him for comfort, but whether his comfort or mine, I'm not entirely sure. Even the hands of our in-home hospice caretakers were appreciated, and he hated strangers. But there was one caretaker who clearly charmed him in some way. She was able to give him a shave or put lotion on his legs, and those little things, and that touch of another person who doesn't have to do that, it meant so much. It was such comfort, and that power of human touch is just incredible. My hands also had an official role. They were in charge of medications. Anybody ever do that? It was an overwhelming amount of meds that I was responsible for sorting and administering, and it was a challenge. I am not in the medical field. I learned more about that than I ever anticipated. The whole stove top was covered with medications. I wasn't cooking, I was dealing things out. And I organized them, and I made notes, and I tracked the meds and dispensed them, and then I looked for reactions. Then I had to report that to somebody. It was a lot. Keeping a steady hand was essential to that part of the caregiver role. Now, my mom liked her back scratched, but my dad, he liked his feet rubbed. And I did that since I was a kid. Doing it was a simple action that brought back such good memories and made us both feel great. It was therapeutic, and it continued to demonstrate the power of our hands. As caretakers, we may raise our hands in helplessness. We shake hands. We use our hands for helping, and we use our hands for healing. We use our hands for holding, sometimes to help them, and sometimes to help ourselves. Our hands are such very powerful tools. When we lend a hand, or someone needs a helping hand, more transfers through that basic human touch than a simple action. Take the hand of the person next to you and give it a squeeze. Feel that connection. So often in today's society, we're afraid to touch, or too busy to lend a helping hand. However, that changes completely when you hear the word cancer. Our roles change. Rather than being a parent or a child or a friend, we're now in new roles. Many times we didn't raise our hand to volunteer for that role, but we're in it. Audrey Hepburn said, as you grow older, you'll discover two hands, one for helping yourself and one for helping others. I'd like to close with a poem adapted from Elliot Wrinkleberry's My Father's Hands. Hold on tight, guys. I held my father's hand today, but he wasn't there with me. He looked my way and smiled a bit, but I don't think he could see. My tears I hold until I'm alone. I want to be so strong. Maybe he should just give up. Is thinking that so wrong? I held my father's hand today, but I don't think he was there. And sister holds and rubs his arm, sat on a plastic chair. And the pipes and tubes and sticky bits are holding him in place. He's tired of all the life, and he's tired of life and all this pain. I can read it in his face. I held my father's hand today and told him how much I care. About the things we laughed about and the stories that we shared. The last thing he said to me, take care, I love you, dear. He told me that he'd been blessed to spend his long life here. I held my father's hand today. I know he didn't feel me. The greatest love that I could give was holding him so near to me. His eyelids close, I kiss his head and comb his thinning hair. I say goodbye to my beloved dad. He doesn't know I'm there. I held my father's hand today, but he wasn't there at all. But when I dream, he comes to me every time I call. And things are like they always were, where everything's all right. I'll hold his hand forevermore, holding him so tight. Please, everyone, give a hand today and applaud. Never be afraid to end a helping hand, and thanks for raising your hand to be part of our relay.